Are you all ready to talk about a game that is the most gamey game ever? Like, if you wanted to play a game, this is the game for you? Okay. Honestly though, that title really says it all. We're talking about Far Cry 6 today, a game that I can only describe as that. Now, that is not me saying the game's bad or even good. I just think that if I told you to imagine a number of different generic game ideas, I bet something close to Far Cry 6 would pop into your head almost every time.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Because really, Far Cry 6 just kind of feels like a generic game. In this video though, I want to go through my love-hate relationship with Far Cry 6, as there's a lot I love and a lot I wish was not in the game. But all will be addressed, and this is taking too long, so let's get this aside and get right into the most game of 2023. So, I bet the first thing a lot of you have already noticed, something I noticed right off the bat, is that Far Cry 6 pretty much looks like your run-of-the-mill Far Cry game. Like, if I told you to close your eyes and imagine a Far Cry 1 remake, this is what it would at least look like. Not that the game looks bad by any means, it actually looks fantastic. I'll get to the graphics in a second though. If you know me though, and the channel, I bet you know or can at least guess that I love the Far Cry games. That being said though, Far Cry 6 is actually the first of the series that I'm not excited to try out. Look at all the bright colors. The only reason I ended up playing the game in the first place was a GPU upgrade over the holidays, granting me free Game Pass. And seeing how Far Cry 6 was recently added at the time, I thought why not try the game for the first time. After playing it though, I kinda wanted to make a video on how mediocre the game feels. As I said though, there are still a whole lot of things that I found really enjoyable about Far Cry 6, creating a bit of a love-hate relationship with the game. And that is pretty much how I'm gonna go through this video. My loves, and then my hates. Or I guess I should say my hates, and then my loves. As who doesn't love a little negativity first? So, starting off the list with some things that I really did not like, as most of them were the first things I noticed while playing. Right off the bat, as I touched on a little bit before, Far Cry 6 heavily lacks a lot of mechanics that pretty much made the previous Far Cry games. Things like guns jamming, crafting gear, returning to hideouts to change loadouts, looting unique items just to get a laugh out of and sell later. Like, all of that is missing from Far Cry 6. And to be clear, it is not just this entry in my eyes. The series has been on a downward slope since maybe Far Cry 4, my favorite Far Cry. I would have to say that Far Cry 2 shined the hardest, and when it comes to mechanics, there has yet to be an entry to compete. But some examples of things that are missing and that just hurt the experience, at least for me, are the lack of skinning animals. You just walk over them and whatever loot on the body just goes into your inventory. You don't even loot enemies, you just do the same thing, automatically picking up ammo and just ammo. The next thing is the constant access to your armory. So this one might sound weird, as I do admit that it does help convenience, but it affects immersion when you can stop whenever and wherever to pull a 30-06 and a Kalishnikov from the ether and throw whatever other rifles you had into nothingness. I do like having to return to the hideout or return to HQ to decide the best loadout for the next mission. And if you end up having troubles, then you know it's the loadout and you either have to deal with it or return and re-gear. Moving on from that, but staying on the topic of weaponry, I hate that you can't loot the guns off of enemies. You can't really loot enemies at all. As I mentioned before, you only pick up ammo when walking over them. This doesn't only hurt the immersion, but sometimes in the middle of a gunfight you either run out of ammo or you just get bored with your current weapon and you want to pick up something new to change things up. Sadly, that is not an option in Far Cry 6.
That's not allowed.
The other reason it's a shame is it was always funny picking up a bag of weed or a porno magazine. Sure, it never served a purpose other than cash, but it was still fun seeing all the different things the soldiers and people were carrying. The last mechanic I want to talk about though, kind of being a two-parter, both affecting the hunting aspects of the game. First being that you no longer skin animals. I said it before, having the same process of looting enemies, just walking over the animal to pick up all the goods. On the other side of hunting is the lack of use that those goods have now. You don't have to craft things like a new ammo or medicine pouch, or you don't have to craft weapon holsters, you just kind of have those things now. You start with all weapon slots, and most other things are just upgraded through purchases or story. The only real use of the hunting loot is certain camp upgrades and such, which is just not as motivating to me. But now, moving on to the next general thing that I just found myself disliking, that being the repetitive nature of every single thing that happens in the game. Every mission just feels like a raid on an outpost. Every outpost raid feels like the last outpost raid. And every random encounter either seems to be a soldier holding someone hostage on the side of the road or an enemy truck driving by. Then what makes this even worse is every location is so different and so well designed, though they somehow manage to make every location feel like the last 6 places you've been to. Shifting over to the big thing that I noticed, so I'm under the assumption that Far Cry 6 feels like Ubisoft wanted to do like a return to the roots situation after 5 and New Dawn having such extreme changes to the series, along with Ubisoft attempting the same thing with the Assassin's Creed Mirage. Though in doing so, Far Cry 6 just feels less like the roots and more like a copy and paste of the previous Far Cry games. I started as male Danny, and right away he just feels like Jason Brody. A whole lot of different locations look right out of Far Cry 3, or even like Just Cause 2 and 3, which is a different series for a different video. But then again, the repetitive missions are also a staple to the Far Cry franchise, back to Far Cry 3 with the go there and blow this up, take them out, take the outpost, repeat. I mean, the game's been going on that loop for a while. But I mean, one of the first missions in Far Cry 6 is you taking a flamethrower to a tobacco field. Sound familiar? I don't know, those missions also lead me up to the next thing, that there's no reward or gratification to completing missions and quests other than advancing the story and getting XP. You don't get anything of use other than some charms and stuff, and we get most of the stuff that we need during the beginning of the game, and the rest can be purchased after the first couple chapters. And playing just to progress the story only takes away from all the amazing locations that can be found through all the free roaming, sometimes even hidden to be found. But now to the last complaint of Far Cry 6 before getting to the things that I actually really enjoyed. Now, this might sound weird, but Ubisoft made this game almost too Far Cry-y. Now yes, you want your Far Cry game to feel like Far Cry, but the barrier of too much was crossed here. Like, we get it. Tropical island, crazy dictator, drugs in civilian cargo, explosions, boat fights, militia, such and so and such. Like, okay, we understand that it is a Far Cry game. But now, off of the negativity and on to some of the things that I actually really ended up liking, which still was a good amount of the game. First off, I already said it a couple times, but wow, this is a beautiful game. Especially with this new GPU being able to crank the important settings, I mean, the game just looks great. The environments, be it towns or jungles, are all highly detailed with the shadows and lighting. I mean, I don't know. Most of the locations just look amazing. I mean, Far Cry has always been known for looking good, with the first Far Cry running in the same engine as Crysis, father of the "can it run Crysis" meme. But on the topic of things that look good, I'll move on to the weapons, which I also really like the majority of. Most of the guns are modeled really well, along with all the different attachments to said guns, which all match the militia vibe, like being able to run around with an old war MP40 water bottle silencer attached to the barrel, along with a modern P220 as my sidearm. Like, it all feels like the least put together military, but it works. One weapon I don't really like though is the strange backpack ability. I mean, not every single game needs a superpower or ability. And come on, really? You're packing around a uranium-powered backpack? If the bullets don't get you. Gameplay-wise, though, it actually feels really smooth, and I haven't run into any bugs or performance issues. You know, transitions from running to walking, getting in and driving cars, movement and gunplay in general, it is all just done really well and smooth. One almost complaint I would have is that it sometimes feels too fast. Reminded me kind of like Call of Duty, just zooming and sliding around. But I say almost because it kind of works for Far Cry 6, feeling almost like Dying Light without the parkour. And now on to the next, I really like the amigos that Far Cry 6 offers. I mean, come on, ever since Far Cry 5, I love wandering around the dictator-controlled lands with my battle pets. And with the first being a crocagator in a sweatshirt, I'll say that the amigo system was introduced well. Next, and I never bring this up, but I should, the physics of the game actually feel really good. following in the footsteps of previous Far Cry games, like swimming through waves of water or blowing up boxes and burning down forests. The moment I realized they got it right was when I found a tank and was plowing through trees, crates, cars, blowing up shacks. It felt like something straight out of a Battlefield game. Moving on though, I also have to say that I love all the slice of life stuff traveling over from 5, like being able to fish. Fishing even feeling better here with new physics and such, but sometimes it's just nice to wander around and ignore all the combat, and this game does give you that opportunity. Part of that too is the vehicles. I thought most of the vehicles were also done well. Sure, there's not very much to rave about, they are practically the same vehicles that we've been getting the past few games, just sporting different models, though I will say that the models all do look really good, and I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Flying planes and helicopters is also great. Getting to spectate the massive and beautiful island from the skies puts the amazing environment into a better perspective. And speaking of the island and the map, I have to admit that this is giant and really well designed. With the 5-minute rule in mind, the world might be repetitive, but it is not boring, and all the different biomes and environments like jungles to swamps, it is all detailed great and is super fun to explore. Now though, to the last thing I want to bring up in the list of likes and dislikes, loves and hates. This one's saved for last because it's kind of on both sides of the list. That being the camp. I usually love any type of HQ or camp that you're able to upgrade or add on to no matter the mechanics, from Rust to the Division. I just like being able to contribute to the change of the HQ, even though that might not make a lot of sense. And we get that here. The camp also gives more purpose to things like scraps, gasoline, and hunting goods that you collect throughout the islands. What I really don't like about it though is for some reason you're in third person, which feels so weird with the rest of the game being first person. Along with that, as I mentioned the Division 2 and even New Dawn and the HQ upgrades in those games, Far Cry 6 has the same lackluster systems, falling victim to just not being very in-depth, and a little disappointing overall. That being said, this is in the likes, as I do love myself a camp. And sure, there are a good amount of other things that I did enjoy, but those were the big dislikes and likes that really stood out to me. And maybe they were different for you all, but then again, this video is stretching on, so I think I'm just going to end it with some final words now. You know, all in all, it is a fun game that definitely hits the mark when coming to Far Cry. I mean, it is beautiful with a huge map, and I would still enjoy myself if this was the only title in my library. But would I go out of my way to purchase Far Cry 6 once my Battle Pass expires? Honestly, most likely not. The map and gameplay is great, but the story feels like a bunch of big performances for nothing more than a copy of the previous games. And I just think at this point, Ubisoft needs to hold off for now. I mean, 6 games, what's next? Far Cry 7, then 8, up to like 20? Like, try for a spin-off or something. Use the same formula, but mask it as something else, which they did, and that's gonna be another video. But I think it's time to learn when to let sleeping dogs lie, I guess. Who knows though, maybe I'm just an old man at heart. I think really there's like a 50-50 chance that you will like this game, all depending on your preferred genre and if you like the other games in the series. But I've said as much as I can and as much as I want to, so I'll just wrap this video up here. Now though, let me know your thoughts on this video or just Far Cry 6 in general, and any other thoughts you have in the comments now. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, slap that like button and subscribe now to stay up to date on everything to come. And if you want to support more videos like this, get your name at the end of every video, and get access to certain videos a couple hours early, check out a membership to the channel by pressing that little join button now. Lastly, if you heard any music that you enjoyed and you want to hear more, check out BillyTheWhip on any music platform to hear all of my home-cooked music. And now that we're here, I want to say thank you all so much for sitting through this video, and thank you all so much for getting us to 1,000 subs. And I hope you all have a fantastic day.
Billy the boogeyman coming for you. Look out for the pigs, look out for me too. Been chewing them up, spitting the new, spitting the bones, pushing the noose.